In this video, we're going to be tying an elk hair caddis. First thing we're going to do is just start off with a regular dry fly hook. And we're going to take some extra small, really fine wire. And you want to make sure it is extra small. You don't want to use small or brassy. It'll be too thick and it'll make your fly actually sink. So we want to make sure we're using the extra small. We're just going to take it and tie it along the side of the hook all the way back to the bend, and we'll just let it hang there for now. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to dub the body, and for the body I'm going to use some Superfine dubbing. It's a really thin, very sparsely dubbed dubbing, which is just what we're looking for this fly. And we're going to be using it in olive for this fly, but you can tie it in other colors: tan, brown, black, grays. Those are all popular colors for the elk hair caddis. All of those is actually one of my favorites, but you can do it in any of those colors. And we're just going to add a little bit at a time, just building up a taper as we work our way forward. I do like to add it in little increments rather than adding it all at once. If you add it all at once, usually it's easy to get carried away and start adding too much dubbing, and your caddis will start ending up looking like a hopper instead of a caddis. Caddis are very thin-bodied little insects. They have big wings, but their body is actually pretty thin, so you want to make sure that you kind of imitate that with your caddis. But there's nothing wrong with making a little taper like we are kind of doing here. And all I'm looking to do is just kind of have that taper, that conical shape as I just work forward. It doesn't have to be much, it just needs to be a little bit. And we're going to go almost all the way forward on the hook here. We're not going to go all the way to the eye. We're going to stop just short of it. We're going to leave about a hook eye's length away from the eye. This is a very easy fly to crowd the hook eye and go too far forward. So you just want to make sure, just when you think you're done, maybe just back off a wrap or two. Most guys do crowd the hook on this fly. That makes it very difficult to tie in the wing and the head at the end, and also very difficult to thread the fly when you're actually fishing it to get your tippet through the eye. So you do want to make sure that you leave some room there at the end. And what I usually do is, I said, about a hook eye's length, but it's a little different for everybody as far as how they gauge distances. So that's about a hook eye's length. You can see there I left just a little bit of bare hook shank. I'm just going to take my thread, I'm going to drop it right in front of that. Then we're ready for our hackle. For the hackle, you can use either brown or grizzly, or what I'm using called dark barred ginger. It's a mix between brown and grizzly. I'm using a whiting rooster cape, a rooster cape feather, I should say. We're going to tie this in so that the natural curve of the feather does face rearward. We want all those fibers to kind of lay back onto the fly nice as we wrap on it. So I just tie in that rooster cape feather, make sure it's secure. I'm just going to take it and I'm going to do one full wrap right up by the front here, and then I'm just going to take that feather, I'm going to angle it back. I'm just going to palmer, or kind of spiral wrap that feather as evenly as I can as I go back onto the shank. And once I get to the back here, I'm just going to take my wire, I'm going to wrap over that feather, and then I'm going to wrap forward with it. I can kind of wiggle the wire a little bit as I wrap through that hackle. That'll help keep me from trapping any of those fibers. Just give it a little bit of a wiggle. And once I get to the front here, I'm just going to take my thread and capture the wire. I'm going to lay over it with a few wraps. And usually you can just take that wire, it's so fine, you can just take it and kind of spiral it out of there. and I'll do a couple more wraps just to make sure everything's secure. And we could trim out the hackle tip at the back here. Now we're ready for the wing. For the wing, I'm just going to use some natural elk. You can also use bleached elk if you have trouble seeing flies on the water. The bleached elk really helps. It's a real white hair. And we do want to make sure we put it in a stacker and we stack all those tips so that they're as even as possible. I really like a nice even tip on my Elk Hair Caddis. And we're going to take that elk and we're going to lay it onto the hook here. And we want the tips to just reach back past the hackle and basically touch the back bend of the hook right at the back. And we're going to take it and just pinch it in place nice and tight. Then we're going to take our scissors and we're going to trim right at the eye of the fly. So I'm just going to take it and trim it. And we're going to leave those ends blunt, just like so. I'm going to take my thread, I'm going to do a loose wrap right over those blunt ends. And actually, I'm going to pull it off here real quick. I want to make my cut just a little bit straighter. I like it to be perfectly straight. I'm going to lay it back down. Same thing, just do a nice loose wrap. And we're just going to tighten down with our thread. We'll do a couple of wraps. And then we can take our whip finisher out. And we're just going to whip finish right on top of all those wraps. Now, once I'm finished, I'm going to take that wing, I'm going to pinch the wing, and I'm just going to pull my thread and tighten that whip finish knot. That'll help kind of flare that hair just a little bit more. And I did trap a few of those hackle fibers. You can just get in there and trim those out of there. Didn't even notice it until I turned the vise. Trim all those hackles out of there. Then you could trim your thread, and you do want to make sure that you add a little bit of head cement to the head of this fly. That way it does not fall apart on you. And that's all there is to the Elk Hair Caddis. Very effective fly, especially out here in the west. Catches a lot of fish out here. Floats nice and high as well. And you can find all the materials to tie this fly on our website, intheriffle.com. That is the Elk Hair Caddis.